Hello, my friends. It is Monday, May 5th, 2025. My name is Darren Gerdes, and this is the Daily Brief. So, the Ukrainians are back in Kursk, and they actually made another big incursion into Kursk. And it's kind of embarrassing for Putin because Putin was just saying on April 26th, "Congratulations, General! Uh, all the all the Ukrainians are off of Russian land, and this is great." And it was just ahead of the Victory Day parade. Okay, let's talk about this. I don't think Putin's having a really good day right now. Ukrainian forces have made new incursions into Kursk region, Russian Federation. They are advancing toward the town of Tinkny and the village of Vasily. Okay, so what's actually happening here? Russian channels are reporting that Ukrainian forces have launched a new push into the Kursk region. Now, I have to qualify this. This isn't like the big Kursk incursion back in August of 2024. It's not like it's like multiple brigades. This is a small incursion, but it's still an incursion that's taking some real estate, leading to intense fighting. It's possible that it's the 225th Assault Regiment that's involved in this push. That number is going to become important in just a moment, so stay with me. Okay. Um, so here's Zelensky talking. When was this? May 2nd. We continue to operate in the territory of Kursk and Belgorod regions as well. So they've never been completely out of Kursk or Belgorod. And here is Putin talking to General Gerasimov. Russia announces the complete liberation of Kursk Oblast, and thanks to Koreans, Russian General Valery Gerasimov claimed Ukrainian forces suffered 76,000 casualties during what he called a failed operation in Russia's Kursk Oblast, and the date here was April 26th. I don't trust those numbers, but they're not all out. And I remember saying at the time, why would he say that? Why would he take a victory lap when they're still there? Or if they push back in, wouldn't that be really embarrassing? And apparently that's what's happening. Now, I told you the 225th, the unit, the 225th was important for a reason. Here was April 22nd. Abdi Aludinov, the commander of the Akhmat unit, he's famous for his TikTok videos. He was saying that he was publicly challenging the 225th Assault Regiment of Ukrainian Armed Forces to battle. He's the guy that he'll generally find out where the battle is taking place, and he'll get there just after it happened and then take some videos. And yeah. Ludinov is one who complained that Akhmat was unable to engage in combat in Kursk because the armed forces in Ukraine had bypassed their positions. I wonder where he is right now. The 225th Regiment responded by eliminating another Russian assault group in Russia's Belgorod region. So, yeah, we're not sure what happened to Ludinov or if he's still there, but apparently you have a chance, Ludinov. Okay, so Ukrainian forces allegedly launched fresh offensive in Kursk Oblast on May 4th evening, Russian news telegram channels said. Russian sources claimed around 250 troops and over 15 units of heavy equipment, including infantry transported on quad bikes, attempted to break through near Totinko village. Earlier, Russian authorities declared that the Kursk region was completely liberated, while Ukrainian commanders maintained their operations were continuing in the region. The Ukrainian border breach of the Russians' Kursk Oblast, again near Tatinko, using Sem River to protect their left flank and the Ukraine-Russian border on the right. They could nip off another 50 square kilometers chunk of Russia with a defendable 6-kilometer front in time for the Victory Day parade. So that looks like what they've actually achieved here, and it's pretty impressive. Okay, so here's a commentary of what happened, kind of a play-by-play commentary. Ahead of Victory Day, Russia launches a second invasion of Kursk. Taking advantage of the bad weather conditions, the Ukrainian armed forces smashed through the border into Russia's Kursk region. It already goes through the teeth, says the commander, as they're watching this. They're talking about Dragon's Teeth. And look, we're already being sorted out. This is the Russian drone commander watching what's going on. Okay, the AFU broke through the Dragon's Teeth. The Ukrainian troops fired missiles, breached the border, used specialized vehicles to cross minefields. At least 50 Ukrainian soldiers crossed into the region. That's one report. Another said 250. Russians write that Ukrainian forces blew up a bridge near the Seam, where the area of the village of Zavoni. They blew up bridges with rockets overnight before launching an armored assault in the morning, taking advantage of poor weather. Apparently, weather was a big issue here. The mine clearance vehicles began to make passages in the minefields, followed by armored vehicles with troops. There's heavy battle going on at the border. Kursk region and Tektinko, the Russians are shown that the game of creating a buffer zone can be played by two. Okay, so that's what's happened here with the breach into Kursk. Again, it's not a huge incursion, but nonetheless, it's something. Okay, so let's start where we normally would start if we didn't have that headline, and that's with this: 1,260 Russians off the battlefield day over day. It's a little lower than yesterday, but higher than the daily average for the last few weeks. 5 tanks, 8 armored fighting vehicles, 43 artillery systems, 109 vehicles and fuel tanks. And if we look at what just happened over the last few days, yesterday was high, but before that it was much lower, and into April it was lower. So 220 is now the daily average for losses in May. That's Russian casualties in May. Okay, if we look at Ragnar Gudmundsson's dashboard, most engagements of 2025 so far, casualties above the 7-day average. Yeah, it was hot on the battlefield yesterday, day over day. Drone artillery losses above average as well. Okay, let's look at this. Ukraine drones of Liberty paid a visit to Moscow last night. So there were drones that went to Moscow, but not a lot actually happened. Like, you could hear it in the video, but there wasn't any real damage. Now, just before I put this video together, there was a massive explosion in an apartment building in Moscow, southwest of the Kremlin, 12 casualties, 2 dead. The explosion came from inside the building. I don't know who they were targeting, but the Ukrainians don't tend to be erratic about this. They tend to be very focused about who they were targeting. That information, I'm sure, will come out. I would imagine this is the wave of the future. And I would imagine that if there's anything that's going to happen with the May 9th parade, it'll be something more like this rather than necessarily drone attacks. That there'll be something that's planted rather than something that can be shot down. That's just my speculation. I don't know. Drones hit Russia's plant producing parts for aerospace, military, and industry in Bryansk Oblast. The early morning strike was targeted at the Strela electrotechnical plant, destroying its administrative and production buildings. So apparently this was a pretty significant hit. You can see from the video here. Okay, let's look at the battlefield and see what else was going on. Again, lots of attacks today. In Pokrovsk direction, Donetsk region, Ukrainian defenders repelled 70 attacks. That's a pretty high number, even for Pokrovsk. But Pokrovsk, they kind of figured out how to stop the Russians, which is really interesting because the Russians had been advancing. And last August, I thought, oh no, it's over for Pokrovsk. They're going to be taken over by September. And here we are in May, and they're still there. Okay, Marines of the 38th Marine Brigade repelled Russian mechanized assault. Convoy of enemy equipment was moving along an asphalt road, led by a tank with a mine flail, but barrage of FPV drones, munition drops, and artillery left it no chance. And you can just imagine what's going on here. I'm not going to show you video just for YouTube censors, but okay. Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jet using American GBU-39 guided bombs destroy Russian positions along with field ammunition depot. Yeah, that was pretty significant. And then this is interesting. I'm winding down now, but here's a really interesting news story. European Union is ready to double military support to Ukraine, not with dollars, but just by purchasing weapons from Ukrainian manufacturers, thereby significantly increasing its volume, because you can get more from building it in Ukraine than you can from having it outside the country imported in. Like, that's just the math. All right, just to wrap up, if you think your job's terrible, factory workers in Shenzhen test as many as 10,000 vapes each day. Okay, by the way, before you get it, somebody is sucked on it in China. Like, okay, so All right, I want to leave you with this image of a Ukrainian soldier with his dog, and then I stumbled on. I think this is one of my favorite images of the war: meeting of Ukrainian cleaning ladies with President Zelensky in the Chamber of Deputies at the Parliament of the Czech Republic. All right, that's a good image, right? And there's something about humility that just makes a leader so much bigger, don't you think? Thank you for your time, my friends. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.